A very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program that brings you all the latest news and events happening inside the African continent. Of course, we start straight away with a look at some of the news making the headlines. The U.S. State Department announced on Monday it would take Sudan off a list of countries that sponsor terrorism, clearing the way for the East African nation's fragile government to seek international assistance. We have more news in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday his country would remove Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism once Khartoum sets aside $335 million for payments for American victims. U.S. officials said that the deal could also set in motion steps by Sudan toward establishing diplomatic relations with Israel. And Sudan's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism makes it difficult for its transitional government to access urgently needed debt relief and foreign financing. Many in Sudan say the designation imposed in 1993 because the United States believed Omar Bashir's government was supporting militant groups is now undeserved. U.S. Sudanese negotiations have focused on funds that Washington wants Khartoum to deposit in compensation for victims of al-Qaeda attacks on U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998. Sudan had insisted that any announcement of Khartoum's delisting not be explicitly linked to normalization with Israel.
And to continue with our news, the Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, accompanied by Egypt's Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Khaled Al-Anani and the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Dr. Mustafa Waziri, inspected the excavation work of the Egyptian Archaeological Mission working in Saqqara Archaeological Area. We have the details.
Egypt will announce a new discovery in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, south of Cairo, in the coming weeks. According to a cabinet statement issued on Monday, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inspected in the early hours of Monday the ongoing excavations by the Egyptian Archaeological Mission in the area. The mission unearthed new burial shafts with colorful and intact coffins over 2,500 years old and wooden colored and gilded statues. Madbouli climbed down one of these shafts accompanied by the Terrorism and Antiquities Minister Khaled Al-Anani and Mustafa Waziri, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, to inspect the discovery and unearth coffins. The discovery will be announced in the coming weeks at a press conference in Saqqara. The visit comes a few weeks after a collection of 59 intact, well-preserved 26th dynasty coffins were unearthed in Saqqara necropolis. The coffins maintain their original colors. Mustafa Waziri said that the preliminary studies showed that the coffins belonged to 26th dynasty priests, top officials and elites. There are mummies in the majority of the coffins. A collection of 28 statues of the Sokru, the main god of Saqqara necropolis, were found along with beautiful carved 35 centimeter tall bronze statue of god Nefertem inlaid with precious stones.
And the Confederation of African Football announced on Friday that Egypt will host the CAF Champions League final in case it is being played between an Egyptian and a Moroccan team after a draw was conducted in Casablanca between the two North African countries. We have more details in this story.
Egyptian giants Al Ahly secured a big advantage over Wydad Casablanca in the African Champions League semi-final on Saturday with 2-0 win in the first leg in Morocco. Ahly stunned the hosts with a goal after just 4 minutes in Casablanca when Magdi Afsha bounced on a defensive slip to put his side ahead. Wydad missed a good chance to equalize when they were awarded a spot kick just before the break, only for Badi' Wouk's tame shot to be saved by Al Ahly keepers Mohamed El-Shenawi. The visitors then doubled their lead in the second half with experienced Tunisian international Ali Malou scoring from the penalty spot. Al Ahly, who have won the title a record 8 times, are now in a strong position to reach the final, going the second leg in Egypt next week. This was the first major test for Al Ahly's new coach, Pitso Misiman, after 2 victories and a draw in the Egyptian Premier League since he replaced Swiss Rennes at the helm. The chances of an all Egyptian final in the Continental Showpiece look good after Zamalek won the first leg of the semi-final also in Casablanca against newly crowned Morocco champions Raga. The semi-finals marks a return to continental club football competition in Africa for the first time since the COVID-19 lockdown. On Friday, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) said a draw was held where Egyptians won the right to host the final on November 6th. Should it feature one team from Morocco and one team from Egypt. If the 2 teams are from the same nation, the final will be hosted in that country.
And we're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for this afternoon, Mr. Osama Imam, the sports critic. It's a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Osama, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Now, Egypt was chosen to host the final match of the African Champions League. How do you view this development?
I think it is a great thing for the Egyptian football and the Egyptian sports that Egypt will get the final league and the final match between the 2 teams that will qualify to the final of the African Champions League. Great thing that happened, especially that Ali and Zamalek play in the semi-final, and they have the opportunities and have the chances to qualify to the final, especially after winning the first match, the first away match against Raga and Wydad, the Moroccan team. I think it's great that we will see the final of the Champions League here in Egypt in Cairo Stadium.
Of course, there are lots of precautionary measures in light of the coronavirus pandemic. How do you see the preparations underway to hold this very important championship here amongst the situation regarding the coronavirus?
Of course, the Ministry of Sports has prepared everything to make the tests for the coronavirus, and they have the restrictions for that. And I think that the CAF, the African, the CAF, the Confederation of Africa, choose Egypt to be the hosting the final, according to the restrictions and the regulations that Egypt do there along the period of the corona pandemic virus. So I think that everything is prepared well to make the test, to also make all the environment clear, and all the environment is to be good to make the final in a good way.
Now, we've already seen, Mr. Osama, the Egyptian teams, Al Ahly and Zamalek, playing in the first leg of the semi-finals. What are your thoughts on these 2 matches and the performance of the players?
The performance of the players, the Ahly and the Zamalek team, was great in the semi-final. Ahly played a very good match against Wydad Casablanca in the stadium of Mohammed Al Khamis. The players was in their great performance. The team has a great role and a great job with the new coach Pitso Mosimane, the South African coach, and I think Ahly can move towards the final, especially winning 2-0 there in Morocco. Give the Ahly the opportunity and give the Ahly team the best chances to qualify to the final. In the second day, we see that Zamalek win Raga at the same stadium, 1-0. Also, the performance of the Zamalek team was great. They have a great chances in this match, especially for Ashraf Ben Sharqi, Mustafa Mohammed, the great players that play in this match. And I think that Zamalek has the opportunity also to move towards the final, especially that the 2 matches will play in the Cairo Stadium, and at all the time, the Cairo Stadium represents a big thing for the Egyptian teams and the African teams. They come and be afraid to play in the Cairo Stadium instead of having the audience or having supporters there in the stadium. But I think that Ali and Zamalek, we will see a Egyptian final there in the Champions League.
You mentioned the new coach of Al Ahly, and you spoke about him. Could you tell us a bit about his coaching skills and how he's made a change really with Al Ahly so far?
Moussimani, since he come to Egypt and trained the Ahly team, he make difference in the performance of the players. He changed the performance of some players that we haven't seen well at the past time, like Ahmed El Sheikh, Hussein El Shahat. We see that the harmony between the players get more and more. They play as a teamwork and not depend on such a player. This is the same way that Moussimani played in Sundowns and has his great performance and great results with Sundowns. Also, he win the African Champions League with them. So I think Moussimani concentrated in his job very well with his partners and with his the coach, the staff coach with him, to make something different with Ali. And I suppose that Moussimani will do a great job with Ali, not only in the Champions League, but also in the next time if Ali win this Champions League, they will also qualify to the World Cup for the clubs, World Cup clubs. And I think Moussimani will write his name as a great trainer, come to Egypt and train Ali team.
Right. Mr. Osama, of course, we've seen the sports minister, Dr. Ashraf Subhi, saying that the sports infrastructure in Egypt has really undergone some reform over the last few years. How do you track the development in the different sporting fields in Egypt?
Of course, the infrastructures of the sports here in Egypt was a great at last 5 or 6 years. We see many stadiums, many new stadiums, and also we see halls that we will play in it. The World Cup of the handball World Cup that will be on the 2021 next year. Also, we have the great hotels for accommodations for any tournament or any champions that we will hosting. So I think we do our best, and the ministry of, especially the Ministry of Sports, do their best to get the infrastructures more and more here in Egypt.
Absolutely. And also Egypt is expected to host a very important championship, which is the World Handball Championship right around the corner. Could you tell us about this important championship that is going to be hosted here inside Egypt?
Of course, it is great to host this World Cup. All the world will see a great World Cup here in Egypt for handball. Of course, the coronavirus pandemic have a bad effect for the people around the world, but I believe that they will see something different here in Egypt instead of this pandemic. Also, we hope and we aiming for the Egyptian national team to move forward in this tournament. All the Egyptian people waiting for this tournament here in Egypt, World Cup of handball, and I think we will see a great thing here in Egypt about it.
We see, of course, the importance of hosting such events, especially during the difficult times that the whole sports industry really has undergone with the coronavirus pandemic.
Of course, but we prepare everything. We have the infrastructure that we say, we have the restrictions and regulations that we can do even here in Egypt to avoid anything bad about the coronavirus. We can do the tests. We have the hospitals. We have the hotels for accommodation, for making quarantine for the players that have coronavirus. Also, all the if their audience or supporters come from another countries, everything is good and everything is okay, and we are preparing everything for this tournament. And I hope that everything will move in the same way that planning from the Ministry of Sports and the responsibilities here in Egypt.
Absolutely right. Mr. Osama Imam, the sports critic, I'd like to thank you very, very much, sir, for joining us and for all your insight and input on today's edition. And that's all the time we have for today. Ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up today's episode of Africa Today. My name is Angie Mehermeni. Thanks for watching.